always knew that, number one, I always knew I was going to be a wife. And I always knew, especially when I got saved, like when I got saved, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was like, oh, my husband's going to be like everything. Like my daddy is too good to not give me perfect for me.
One.
Right. So I just, in my mind, like there was no way. And so when I married my ex-husband and it was such turmoil and trauma and issues and heartbreak and heartache and all the things, I couldn't understand. And it challenged my relationship with God because, like I said, I was like, oh, my daddy got me. And then this happens. But it also strengthened it in the long run.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Man Fast podcast. Listen, I'm so excited that you all are showing up every single week. And wow, God has just exploded what this ministry has really become. And I'm so excited that you're here. Listen, I want you to take a moment. I want you to like, share, subscribe, whatever platform you're on. I'll tell you, I really hope that you're either on YouTube or on Spotify so you can actually see the video. But even if you're not, you're on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Amazon, iHeartRadio, whatever it is, I need you to subscribe. I need you to like it. I need you to leave a comment, something, honey, and then share it with somebody because today is going to bless. It's definitely going to be a blessing for everyone who watches it. I'm excited about my guest. We have had to go through some stuff for us to be able to come together today. And so I'm really excited for you to meet Miss Faegen Adams. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on here. Faegen, how are you doing, dear?
I am wonderful.
Can I just say I love your name? I love Faegen.
Thanks. It took me a very long time to like it.
Did it?
It did.
Well, okay. Is there a story behind Faegen?
I wouldn't say a story. I just know that when I was younger, I hated my name. I hated it because it was hard to say. It was easily picked on. It was different. So I went by many other names all my life. So all my life as a child, I went by Megan. And then as I got a little older, I switched up to like Mallory. Don't know where I got that from.
I don't either.
I don't know. And then I went back to Megan, and it was Megan until I got saved.
Let me find out. The Lord said, first of all, I want you to claim your name.
Yes.
So you get saved, and then all of a sudden you walk in this boldness of let me walk in what my real name is. Like, talk to us about that process. I wasn't even expecting that, but talk to us like that.
So it wasn't until retrospect, right? Until I was able to look back, I realized that it was an identity issue. I thought I just didn't like the name. But I really just did not know me. I didn't like me. I didn't like what people perceived Faegen as. And so as a kid, I was shunned. I was kind of pushed to the side. I was a nuisance. And so I tried to, and I get this now. Of course, at the time I didn't. But I get this now where I try to, I guess, unidentify with who that was, right? Like who my family saw me as. And so, of course, being picked on about it kind of just threw flame or fuel to the fire. But it was an identity issue. And so when I got saved, the Lord made it clear, and I didn't even know how to hear from the Holy Spirit at the time. But he made it very clear. He said, Faegen is your name. So I stopped telling people my name was Megan, and I went with Faegen.
I love it because I've never heard the name before. And I was like, this name is so dope. I mean, I was made fun of, I was called Tampon in Topeka, Kansas. I know the kids are just so cruel. But I was always proud of my name. I was always like, don't call me anything else other than Tamika. I used to hate nicknames. And then when I got older, I realized like just the endearment behind nicknames. And I was like, I want a nickname. But like, I just was that kid that I was a nuisance too in a lot of ways. And I'm pretty sure some of that was just like, girl, get yourself together. What do you want? So, get yourself together. So Faegen, you help women heal from heartbreak. But even beyond that, you are a mother of 3. You're a stay-at-home mom. You're a wifey. I don't even know if you have an official title, but you're definitely a minister. You mentor women all over the globe. And I'm so excited to meet you in person. Stay at
Yeah.
home mom of 3.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What did your life look like before we jumped on this interview today?
Like physically look like real in real life? Oh gosh.
Absolutely. This is so fun for me. I love to ask.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm a homeschooler who did no homeschooling today. Let's talk about that. Nothing happened today. I think I put them on Epic. They read some books online, and that was pretty much it. I had, we did breakfast. We did a scramble that my kids half ate. All the things. I failed at a smoothie
No.
that nobody ate. A lot of wasted food, no homeschooling, all that stuff. And I threw a pot roast in the Instant Pot before we got on the call.
Listen, that's cooking, and that is success.
Yes,
So when you have these days, have you, because you said that and you were completely okay with, like, listen, it was not a picture perfect day. Have you always been like that, or did you have to get to the place where you were like, you know what, today's just not perfect and we're good?
totally had to get there. Totally had to get there. The Lord used to tell me, number one, to pick my battles. He has taught me to pick my battles. Not everything is going to be a win, and you just have to roll with the flow. Now, for me, when I first got saved, I was not a perfectionist, but I was striving to please people all the time. So you can call it a people pleaser. And so it took me years to get out of that. And then when I became a wife, I noticed that I was kind of bringing that into my marriage,
Uh-oh, come on.
where I had to always cook, I had to always clean, I had to always be available, and I just lost me. And my husband is so not like high maintenance. He's so easy to please. So he had to help me get out of that. Like, I don't need you to do these things. When you do them, they're great, but I need you to take care of you first. Because if you don't take care of you, you're no good to me. And so I just thank God for the husband that I have because,
Lord, clone him a
yes,
million times over for your daughters who are waiting. Like,
yes, yes, they're out there. They're out there. He's
what
not an anomaly. My husband's not an anomaly.
did you, and we're gonna, I feel like we're gonna get there, but did you ever think that you would find someone like that, or were you kind of like a lot of single women who felt like a man like this is an anomaly? Did you
No,
feel like that?
never did.
So you always felt like, listen, there's a good one out there.
Yeah, that's why I was so bamboozled when it came to my ex-husband. I was like, "Wait a minute, what happened? Like, this ain't it. This is
Uh-oh.
not it." I always knew. I always knew that. Number one, I always knew I was going to be a wife, and I always knew, especially when I got saved. Like when I got saved, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was like, "Oh, my husband's going to be like everything." Like my daddy is too good to not give me perfect for me.
One.
Right? So I just in my mind, like there was no way. And so when I married my ex-husband and it was such turmoil and trauma and issues and heartbreak and heartache and all the things, I couldn't understand.
Hmm.
And it really it challenged my relationship with God because like I said, I was like, "Oh, my daddy got me." And then this happens. But it also strengthened it in the long run. So
So okay, let's start there. I mean, I've been divorced twice. I mean, I was married and then and divorced on 2 different occasions, and grew up in church, and but I still deviated from the blueprint. My parents have a beautiful marriage, and I deviated from what I even saw growing up.
mhm,
But it was on me because of having low self-esteem and looking to men to validate who I was. Like, that's something that now that I've done some work and God put me on a man fast, that I'm
yeah.
able to admit. But you had to heal from the heartbreak of divorce. Can we talk about that moment of what was it like to come to the realization that, okay, a divorce is happening, and then being able to pick up and move forward?
So in that season when I was transitioning, right? So I was separated for about maybe 9 or 10 months. before we actually got a divorce. And so during that separation, my healing started. My healing didn't necessarily start after my divorce. I lived in an apartment by myself with my kids, with my two girls at the time. One was from that marriage and one wasn't. And so I'm here, single parent. And I'm just like, me and you, Lord, like, I need you to help me be better. So, and then I always had in my mind that we were going to get back together. Like, the separation wasn't like until we divorced, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, help me be better. And while you're doing it, help that man because he needs it.
Right? Yes.
And so that's what that looked like for me. And my healing journey just started with that. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, your healing journey, it's not rocket science. It's not like algebra. Like, you literally just have to say, okay, Lord, me and you, what do you want to do here? Right? What do you want to do here first? Because if I come to you complaining about this, that, and the third, you don't even answer me. When I was going to the Lord about my ex-husband, he said nothing about him ever. Ever. The only time he actually spoke to me about my ex-husband was in with a heart of compassion. Like, when he was actually like saying, it's because of this or that, it's not, so he always was trying to get me to work on me. And so that's what that season looked like. That season looked like me saying, okay, Lord, what is it? And that's exactly what he did. He showed me everything.
Wow.
And my heart was ready to receive it. He knew it was. And so we went on a journey together, me and the Lord, just fixing me. I was reading a lot of books. I was spending a whole lot of time with the Lord, time that I didn't necessarily do before, if I can be honest. And I was just spending time with him. I was getting to know what it felt like to be loved, hearing the voice of the Lord. Oh man, it was like a training. Like, he was training me how to hear from him, because that was the biggest mistake. That was the big thing that actually led me to marry this man. Because even when I thought I was going to the Lord, like, hey, is this my husband? I didn't know how to hear from him to get yes or no. So of course I would make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
He was training me and healing me at the same time.
Wow. And you were young when the divorce, because you're still young, but
Yeah.
compared to me, because I'm 43. So,
You're my husband's age.
Okay. What up, bro? Okay. Yeah. So when you got divorced, so were you still in your 20s?
Okay. So I got divorced in 2017.
Okay. Isn't it crazy when you have to figure out how old you were? I know.
I was in my late 20s. I was in my late 20s.
And the reason why I asked that is not even to highlight the age, but to highlight the age, because when I was divorced the first time, was I 20? I was about to turn 25. I did everything wrong. I did not look to God for anything. As a matter of fact, I remember actually saying to the Lord, I don't want to talk to you because I feel like you're going to tell me to stay. And I literally, my mom was like, because I ended up moving back home. And we had been separated too. Like, we had this, we would be separated, get back together, be separated. And I was angry, and I was tired of people telling me, that I just wasn't submissive enough and all of those things. And it never occurred to me. And my parents are both preachers. Like, it never occurred to me that maybe God would just want to like love on me. Like, I just thought, I looked at God as everybody else that was saying to me, you're spoiled. That's what I was getting. You're spoiled. You're this, you're that. And it was really nothing of the sort, that was happening. And I said to the Lord, I said, I don't want to talk to you because you're going to tell me to stay. Yeah. And so I floundered for years. I at that time ended up becoming a single mother of one, and I felt like I was damaged goods because the enemy played on that. And I was like, you have a child, nobody's going to want you. And in today's society, it even sounds crazy that I even thought that. But I remember quickly getting into a relationship with the very first person who showed me attention, and because I'm a relationship person, we got married. And I don't ever talk badly about either one of them. But again, I didn't follow the blueprint of what I even grew up seeing. And so when I went through the second divorce, I still did things wrong. I ran. I ran from the church because I was sick of everybody. And
Mhm.
tell my side. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything to you guys. You don't listen. You don't want to hear what I have to say. And I literally left and moved to Philadelphia and did everything wrong, got into terrible relationships. And it wasn't until my heart got broken again with after I thought I had been processed and ready that I said, okay, God, I can't do it anymore. But that's why I'm like, for me, that happened when I finally said, Lord, I'm not going to run anymore. I understand I got to be single. Okay. That happened for me at 41, really, when I really was just like, let me just stop running. But
Mhm.
you had enough wherewithal at like 29 to
Mhm.
say, let me lean into God and not into my own understanding. Like, how does that happen?
So if I can be honest, I don't know if it was like wisdom. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think it was wisdom that led me into like this healing process. It was really it started off as me just wanting to avoid that mistake at all costs. Like, and I guess that's a form of wisdom, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, because I'm just gonna go into this healing process. I didn't even know I was entering into a healing process. I
Yeah.
didn't know that I was getting myself ready for a husband. That wasn't what I was doing. I was just like, yo, what just happened to me? I can't
Never ever.
ever happen again. And I knew better than to create that inner vow where I'm like, I will never let a man hurt me again. That's dangerous. So we don't do those, right? We don't do
Mhm.
inner vows. But for me, I was just like, Lord, I can't go through that again. And I definitely cannot put my daughter through that again. And so it was really out of desperation. It was me like, I can't ever deal with that. And so
Wow.
what that looked like was me like, okay, Lord, I know what I did wrong last time. And the number one thing that I did wrong is I didn't have a solid enough relationship with you. And so I just sought that. And he did wonders. I did not know I was going into a healing process. And that healing process was expedited. And now I see that. I didn't know, but I see that now because of, the people always say, like, God meets you where you are. And it's very true. God meets you where you are. But you have to consider the negative side of that too. Like, what happens when God meets you where you are and you're not ready? Or
Uh-oh.
God meets you where you are and you're carnal, right? So you want God to meet you where you are, and where you are should be in a place where it should be submissive.
Hmm.
You should be in a place of submission, in desperation for the Lord, right? Your heart needs to be clear and pure. You shouldn't be bitter, right? You shouldn't be unforgiving, right? Because you want God to, and that's what he did. He met me where I was. My heart was open. I had got rid of the idea that I was the victim in the situation. I had completely disconnected from the idea that this man is the one that hurt me. It wasn't about him, right? We have an enemy out there, right? And when I had these lists and I had these ways of what I wanted my man to be, Satan heard me. And he brought me exactly what I said I wanted.
Come on.
Exactly what I said I wanted, Satan brought me.
And
And I
that's
was
just reality.
yes, and I wasn't wise enough. I wasn't I didn't have enough discernment to know that this is Satan's ploy against me. I
My
didn't
God.
know. And I tell people all the time, if that man, him, or someone like him, if I was single, right? And someone like him approached me now, I would sniff him from a mile away.
Yeah.
I would smell him from
Yeah.
a mile away. So what does that
Let's
say? What does that
let's
say about the person, right?
yeah, well, yeah, well, I mean, I'm still just like, oh God, why wasn't I like her when I was her age? Because I'm like, Lord, I would have been so far along. I am you're not amazed by you, but I'm amazed by you. And I am amazed by your wisdom of even surviving because that
Mm,
desperation sometimes comes from just survival because sometimes heartbreak, I teach that we think that we're hurting when we're dealing with heartbreak, and it's because you really are, because your body physically can go through stuff when you're going through heartbreak. And even just for you to say, I don't want to go through that again, because I was the chick that would say, I don't want to go through this again. And I kept being with the same person over and over again. They just had a different face. They were in a different area code. And so God is just awesome. And I love the fact that you are teaching women what was just innate in you. And so like here I am, I'm just trying to unravel all of that for anybody that's watching. You talked about the list.
Mhm.
And one of the things I know is that you don't like lists. Tell us why we need to tear up the list. You and hubby had actually like made a video a couple of months ago where you guys were like, y'all Christian ladies, y'all need to rip up the list. Talk to us about why we need to rip up this list, because a lot of relationship gurus, Christian, faith-based and not, always tell us to make a list. So why should we rip this list up?
So lists are dangerous, right? Now, I know people say where in the word it tells us to write the vision and make it plain. We totally get it, right?
We take
However,
that completely out of context.
yes. We have to consider that the vision that God is talking about is the vision that he gives you, right? It's not, what do I think I want, right? It's what God, who the question should be. If you want to write a list, the question should be, what is your idea of the perfect husband for me?
Come on.
Who do you see me with? Who have you preordained me to marry? I think people have, especially Christian women, we have this idea of like, okay, we just want to be found by a husband, but we want to be found by the man that God has for us. It's not as simple as just being found by a good man or found by someone who we have chemistry with, who can take care of the bills. And no. I don't want any of that if it's not in God's perfect will. And so that's what I'm trying to teach people, that your goal is to find out what God's perfect will is for your life, every aspect, not just relationships, right? Marriage is a small part of our lives. It is. It's important, but God is more interested in our souls and our purpose and our destiny and all that. Marriage helps us get there.
Absolutely.
But marriage is not the end all be all, right? Marriage is not going to get us to heaven, right? It doesn't keep our salvation. So when we have these lists, you should be getting the list from the Lord. And that is what happened with my now husband. I got the list from the Lord. I didn't even seek to write a list. He told me to write down what I'm going to give you. And then I just wrote it down.
Hey, so I just wanted to break in for a moment and ask you if you've gotten your copy of The Man Fast. If you haven't had a chance to get a copy of the book, I want to encourage you to do that and to take your consecration to a completely different level. Since our creation, God desired that his daughters would always be valued as gifts. And somewhere, I don't know where it happened, a woman's worth was lost in translation, and we place all of our stock and affirmation into our looks, into our body shape, and what lies between our thighs. But within the book, I take you into the most vulnerable time of my life for over a year, where the Lord had me be set apart and consecrated. And within these pages, you're going to learn how to love yourself through God's eyes, heal and repair your broken heart. You'll learn how to break soul ties and prepare for the man of your prayers. Now, inside this book, you're also going to encounter prayers of healing and deliverance, devotion scriptures, and a prayer journal. And you're also going to have reflection questions and healing activities. So if you are interested in grabbing your copy of the book, go to themanfastbook.com. And now back to the show. And that happened. And I love your love story. It is unique. And you actually tell people, listen, this is unique. These are unique circumstances. Would you mind sharing your love story with us?
Where do you want me to start?
Wherever you want to start. I love love stories. Let me like get my legs all propped up and ready, because I love romance. So wherever, all the things.
Yeah, it's a great story. It is. It glorifies the Lord, and it puts a spotlight on how much the Lord wants to be a part of every aspect of our lives, including our relationship with the opposite sex. So I met my husband, my now husband. I met him in 2013. So I met him at church. I was going to the church for about a year. He had just started coming. And so I was a single woman. It was a very small church. So I think we had maybe like 25, 30 congregation members. And he comes in, I noticed him, but he wasn't really my type. And so no whistles or, fireworks or anything like that. It wasn't anything crazy. I just noticed that he was a single guy that just came to church. And so within a few months, he approached me. And his words to me was, hey, I've seen you around. And I feel like, he said, I asked the Lord if I should approach you. And I feel like I got peace to do so. He said, and I was just wondering if we can get to know one another. And so my response at the time, I was actually dating someone, right? And so
Yeah.
my response to him was, that's awesome. And I'm really sorry, but I'm actually dating someone right now. And I don't
You're
really
so
like
cute.
dating multiple people at the same time. And so he was like, okay, like he tucked his tail between his legs and kind of, walked off. That night I went home and I told you I had been recognizing him. I had been noticing him rather at church. I went home and I remember sitting on my floor in my bedroom and I was bawling, crying my eyes out. And I was crying because I knew that the man that I was with, although he was great on paper, he was great on paper. He was not the man for me. And I
Mm.
knew God had been telling me that. And so when I met Ralph, we meet and we have this conversation. I said to the Lord, I said, I want a man like that. And what I was referring to was how he would worship the Lord. I would see him at church worshiping. He was the first one in, the last one out. Although he was new, he was serving everywhere.
Wow.
He was completely devoted. He was so kind. He was meek. I've never met a meek man. I've always been attracted to very prideful and boastful men, you know? And so I never met a meek man. I never met someone who, when he was speaking to me, he was speaking to me, and there was no ulterior motives. His eyes weren't wandering, it was pure. And I just cried out and I said, Lord, can you bring me a husband like that? Right?
Wow.
Didn't never think of Ralph. I just said, bring me a husband like that. I told you, I was very carnal. I had just gotten saved. I was very carnal. And so he just wasn't my type. So I moved on a few years later. We ended up just seeing each other around church for years, just saying hi and bye, never dated, anything like that. I think the only interaction we had was when he helped me move. I needed someone to help me move. So
So
long
wait,
story
so
short,
you get married in this time frame and all of that, right?
yes, so I'm getting there. So in 2015, I think we got married. So I get married to this man. I meet this man outside of church.
Right.
I met this random man. It
Yeah.
was actually I actually met my ex-husband during a really, really hard time in my life where I was struggling with fornication. So I was in the church, but I was struggling with it. Now, when I say struggling with it, I don't mean like I was out there just like gone buck wild. I was dating a guy and I was completely against having sex with him, but I would find myself doing it and then crying and going to the Lord, why do I keep doing this? And I would break up with him, right? We can't do this anymore, right? And I would meet another guy about a month later and we would do it again. And it was like cycles where I could not break this. And I knew that this was a stronghold. And so here I am, me dating this guy in 2015, 2014, and we're fornicating. And I said, okay, I called him one day and I said, I am done. We cannot see each other. It's done. We're over. Blocked him on every social media, took
Come
him
on
off
here.
my phone. And I said to the Lord out loud, I said, Lord, I'm going to let him go, but I'm letting him go because I want your will for me. I want the husband that you have for me. And I said, it's up to you to bring him to me. Within an hour or so, maybe an hour, I got a message on DM and Facebook, and it was my ex-husband. And I was just like, and I had never met him before, just a random message.
Wow, the setup.
And I said to the Lord, I said it out loud. I said, okay, this is either you or Satan, because it was within an hour. No one ever messaged me on Facebook. So this was very rare. And he knew a friend of mine. And so he said, "Hey, I know you. I've seen you around. I want to get to know you." He was everything on my list physically, everything on my list physically. And so I was just like, oh, okay, I don't know what this is. And before you know it, we ended up dating. Everything that I said that I wouldn't do, I did.
Hmm.
Every boundary that I said that I had, he made sure that I compromised. And I'm not trying to play the victim here.
No, no, no.
I told him, hey, we're not going to each other's houses. And his response to me was, I think that's doing too much. We're not going to have sex. I can come to your house. That's a little too much. And before you know it, we were having sex. And so time passes. Within a year and a half, we are separated. And I had a dream. So I had a dream in my separation, right? I am in my new apartment. I go to bed. The dream starts off with me holding a little baby boy. And the baby boy was like a chocolate boy. And I always had little light skinned babies. So that was very strange to me. So I'm looking at this chocolate baby, so cute. And I'm like, whoa. And so I'm holding this baby. And then Ralph walks up to me
In the dream?
in the dream.
Oh,
He kisses the baby on the forehead. And then he kisses me on my lips. And then the dream ends. No contact. We had
oh
not
God,
talked.
you can write these types of stories. This is so good. Okay.
We had not talked. So it wasn't like, because I know you have to be careful because there are dreams that you can cause yourself to dream
Yep.
based on your own desires and how strong they are. You can cause a dream. This is what that was not it. I told you he wasn't my type, right? He wasn't someone that I was even thinking about or seeking. I was in this healing process with the Lord, and then I had this dream. So then I woke up and I called my friend and I said, "Hey girl," I said, "You remember that guy that I told you approached me a few years ago?" She's like, "Yeah, the one that wasn't your type, right?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I just had a dream." I told her the dream. And she said, "Well, maybe it's just that the Lord is telling you that he's going to fulfill his promise to you. When you said that I want a man just like him, right? Maybe he's going to fulfill that." And so we kind of just settled on that. And I was like, all right. Well, within a month, we started talking. We just started talking. I had a friend that was staying with me at the time that also went to the church. And that day I didn't go to church, but she went to church. She didn't have a car at the time. And so him being the man he is, offered to take her home. Well, he didn't know that she lived with me. No one knew, but my pastor. I think my pastor knew. So when I opened the door for her, he's standing right there. And I'm
Oh
just
Lord.
like, awkward moment, right?
Yeah, because I kissed you in my dream. Like
Right. Right. We just
we
kissed.
have relationships, sir. You just don't know it yet. Like,
You're my boyfriend.
yeah, right. You my boo thing. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what it was so awkward. And so that interaction, just him coming over, and I remember she was looking at us. I guess we were looking crazy because she was looking at us like, okay, like I guess it was awkward for her. And we got into a conversation. And in that first conversation over the phone, he said, "Well, I'm going to let you go." We were talking about a birthday cake. He used to bake. So I said, "Can you bake a birthday cake for my daughter?" And in that conversation, it was really awkward, but I thought that he was just awkward. But then he was like, "Well, I'm going to let you go."
Faegen like had no mercy.
I did. I did. And I said, "Well, I'm going to let you go because I think, no," he said, "I'm going to let you go because it's getting late." Right. So I was like, it wasn't late. It was maybe like 6:30. And I was like, late. And then he's like, "Well, you're a married woman, Fagan, and I don't." And I was like, "Married?" I started cracking up. And I was like, "I'm not married." This is after my divorce, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that. I don't know if I said
You
that.
didn't, but I
Oh,
just assumed, but you cleared it
okay.
up. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So time had progressed. I got divorced in July of 2017. So we fast forward, we started that first conversation that we had was in September of 2017. Sorry. So in our conversation, he said, "Hey, I'm going to let you go. You're a married woman. I think this is kind of inappropriate." I was just like, "I'm not married." And so he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. So we can talk." Right. So we had this long 2-hour conversation.
I love it.
In that conversation, so much was uncovered. So much was uncovered. Lo and behold, he was having dreams of me for years to the point where he went, he went to our pastor. We shared a pastor, right? So he went to my pastor and said, hey, I'm having dreams about Faegen, but she's married and I don't know what to make of them because in the dream, they were always like implying that I was his wife. In one dream, I asked him in the dream, I'm on a couch, my kids are on the couch with me, there's a dark figure standing by the door. And he is on the other side of Ralph is on the other side of the room and he's looking at me. And then I looked over at him and I said, were you supposed to be my husband? And then the dream ends.
Stop.
He never told me that, of course, until we had that first conversation in October or September.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. Okay, continue the story. I'm loving it.
Yes. So I'm listening to these dreams now while so the dreams came up because I told him in that phone on that phone call, right? I said, listen, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I wasn't really calling you about baking the cake. I was calling you because you've been on my heart, which he had been, right? After that dream, the Lord kept implanting him on my heart. It wasn't like I was just thinking about him. I would be doing something randomly, and then he would just like be like impressed on my heart, and I was like, "What is this?" And so I would pray for him. And so when we finally had this conversation, I made something up to talk to him, right? Because I didn't want him to think I was interested, because I wasn't. So I didn't want him to think that. And so I made up a cake thing. Well, in that conversation, I told him like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but I don't know if you're going through something." I knew he was in the military, so I'm like, "Are you being deployed or something? Like, should I be praying for you?" And he's like, "No, I'm not being deployed. I don't know what." So then when I said that, it made him tell me about the dreams he's had of me. So that's when he said, "Well, I don't know if this means anything, but I've actually had like a few dreams of you." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Over the years, since we first talked in 2013, I've had multiple dreams of you. In one in particular, he tells me this dream. Were you supposed to be my husband?" And I'm just like, "Wait, what?" And he said, "I would not lie to you." He said, "I had that dream a year ago. And in that dream, that when I woke up, this is what Ralph said. He said, when I woke up, I told the Lord, don't give me any more dreams about her. She's a married woman." And he told me he was trying to cover his heart and make sure that he wasn't lusting after someone's wife.
Yes.
And that's what happened. The Lord never gave him another dream. Never gave him another dream. And I want to say this because I'm really hesitant to share these things, especially about the dreams. I don't share them on my own platform like that. And the reason why I don't is because I never want to give somebody an okay to make up in their minds that this particular person must be their wife because they've had a dream, or this even if they're married. Like, you have to be really careful with that. And I want to say that the Lord trusts my husband enough to give him that kind of dream. And I'm not putting my husband on a pedestal, but my husband is very self-controlled. He's very self-controlled and he's very submissive to the Lord. So I don't think that that's a typical way that the Lord will speak to someone. I believe that is, yeah.
No, I was gonna say, no, I love that. And one thing that you have done, even through telling of the dreams from you and the dreams that he had, is you both went to God and was like, what is this? Right. And so I agree with you. I think that that's very important, because the enemy can try to implant things on us, and so it is important that we're still prayerful. And what I love is that even when he had that dream, he said, Lord, she's married. And for him, he was like, I don't know where this is coming from, but God, I need to be a man after your own heart, God, and I cannot be lusting after somebody's wife. Like that is what it's all about. That is truly being consecrated to the Lord, so that we don't, God's ways are not our ways. We don't understand it, but the way that we can stay safe in the process is to always take it to God, no matter what it is. And he waited. Like, he didn't come to you and say, hey, listen, so I've been having a dream about you for the last 3 years. No, God, please don't give me any dreams. I don't want to step outside of this. And then he just fell back and let God just do what he had to do.
Right.
God is the common denominator in this whole entire thing. So I love the fact that you even stopped and said, let me just say this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe, and even if we were starting, like, even if the Lord gave me that dream and we were having a conversation in my separation, we would have never had a one-on-one talk.
Yeah.
We would have never had a phone call. That's why I wanted to make that very clear. That would have never happened in my separation. I did not. That was the last thing I wanted anyway. That was the last thing I endeavored to do, was to get remarried. Actually, I told the Lord in my quiet time with him one day that I do not want to get married until my children go to college, because of the turmoil that my daughter just went through.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to get married until they go to college. And so, of course, the Lord tells me to write a list. And so I'm like, I don't wanna, but I did.
I
And
wrote a list already. It was wrong.
right, right. But he was everything on it.
So you said that the Lord ends up telling you write a list, but the Lord tells you this is what your husband is going to be.
Yeah.
How did you know that these were God's thoughts and his desires for you and not yours?
Well, I mean, and the manner in which I wrote the list had a lot to do with it. So one in the middle of the night, I would wake up around 3:30 in the morning every morning, and spend about an hour in quiet time with the Lord in this season. And this was consistent every single morning. And so I was doing that, and I was on my couch praying in the spirit. And as I'm praying in tongues, the Holy Ghost said to write a list. I'm going to tell you what to put on it.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, right? And so I did it. And when I did it, I remember it was so fluid that I could have written with my eyes closed.
Wow.
It was almost like it was not me writing. So the manner in which it was written was confirmation that it wasn't me. That in itself, right? Not to even talk about what was on it, right? So I'm writing, and it was almost like it was the Holy Spirit. Like, he was just writing for me. And the list was very short. Like, very short. It was maybe like 7 things on there, where my other list was like 15. So, and then when I looked at what was on the list, I realized that none of this would have been, I mean, there were some things that I would say, okay, I probably would put that on there, but there were things that I would want on the list that wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
I said nothing about his height, which was very important to me at the
I'm
time.
just telling you, I told God, listen, I got a height requirement. Lord, like, okay. Okay, I got you, Faegen. Tamika, don't ask God about height. He'll give it to you. Okay.
Yes, complete submission.
Yeah.
Complete submission. If I mean, God knows what you want and what you need.
Yeah.
You only know what you want. And honestly, even when you think you know what you want, my ex-husband and my now husband are completely different. Not completely different, but very different in stature and the way they operate. They're different people, right? But if you would have asked me then which one would I have chosen, it would have always been my ex-husband, because I thought that that was my desire. Now I love how my husband looks. I love everything about him. I am extremely attracted to him. He is sexy to me, everything. But if you would have asked me that back then, I had a completely different way of thinking. So
Hmm.
our thoughts are not like his. And so the Lord will give you the desires. And when he says he'll give you the desires, it's not that he'll give you the things that you want. He will put the desires in you,
I love
and
it.
then those things will come to pass.
I love it. So, you actually released a video where you said if you have a relationship that started out in sin, marriage is not the answer. I'm in agreement. You said marriage is not a fix all, it's a magnifying glass. Girl, talk to us about this.
It is. It's a magnifying glass. 85 to 90% of the women that I speak to that have come out of a divorce, and especially when the relationship was toxic, they started off the same way. They were fornicating, and they decided to go ahead and get married because they didn't want to fornicate anymore.
Hmm.
And it's even worse when it's told to you by a pastor. When a pastor, because usually as Christian women, we do the right thing, right? And we go to get like premarital counseling and all the things, right? Quote unquote, all the right things. When in all actuality, we didn't go to the Father. So we'll go to all the people and they'll give us some not so good advice. And sometimes that advice is, well, if you guys are fornicating, y'all need to just go ahead and get married.
That's the advice. Yeah.
No, that is not the advice.
That's what
It's
they give. Yep.
when someone comes to me and they say, "Hey, I'm a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old woman. I am in this relationship. We are fornicating. I know that it is wrong. I believe he is my husband, but I'm not necessarily sure. What do I do?" The first piece of advice I give them, you need to stop fornicating. Well, I'm living with them. Move out.
That's it.
You shouldn't be living with them. Well, it's hard because we got kids together. Stop the sin. You don't fix the problem with marriage. You stop the sin,
That's
right?
it.
You stop the sin, and then all the other things will work out. You don't fix the problem with marriage. That's just not how it works.
And one of the things I was talking about, I have a group of women that I mentor, and I actually was just talking about this last night, that your proclivities, your perversions, the things that you should not be participating in, getting married does not stop those things, right? Like, I was molested at the age of 5, addicted to porn at the age of 8, and I just carried that into being married.
Yes.
And so when I would feel rejected by my husband, because when you're married, you're two different people, and so there's just times where you might snap at the like it's just what it is. But anytime I would feel rejected, I had my way of making myself feel better, and it's like, take care of that. I was talking about the fact that when it comes to the man fast, that God was like, give me a year, no distractions. Within that year, the Lord delivered me from things that I had carried into both of my marriages. And it's like, no, you have to have discipline over your body. You have to have enough discipline that I will not sin just because it's what makes me feel better in the moment. If you have a problem with cheating when you're single, you're going to have a problem cheating when you get married. And so I love that. So you say marriage is a magnifying glass.
Yes. It's not a fix it.
Yeah. So how does it magnify?
So, number one, marriage is the number one relationship that you have that you can't necessarily escape from, right? Like you said, when you're lonely, you will find a way to escape. Well,
Yeah.
that is a magnifying glass. It's magnifying the problem, right? You don't have an opportunity. Now it's showing, hey, Tamika, there's a problem here. This is what you're doing when this is happening because there's no other outlet. This is your husband. You are living together. This is what you have right here. Like you can't come outside of this. And so it's almost like a gun or money. Think about a gun and money, right? A gun takes on the nature of the person holding it. It can be the best thing. It can be protection. It can be the right thing depending on the person who is holding it. But if you put a gun in a criminal's hand, in a murderer's hand, the gun is a completely different tool. Money, you can put money in someone's hand, someone who is righteous, someone who has wisdom, someone who is giving and kind, and you put it in someone else's hand that is not any of those things, it's a completely different tool. Marriage is the same way. You put the wrong person in a marriage, it's a problem. You put the right people in the marriage, it can be uplifting, it can be edifying, it can be glorifying to the Lord. It's a completely different tool. So marriage is not a fix it. That is why I tell people if you are having sex out of marriage, you need to repent. You need to fix the problem so that you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And those are toxic relationship cycles. We cannot expect different results doing the same things. It's a magnifying glass.
It's a magnifying glass. It is. If he tells you that you have an attitude problem, you probably really do. And you already know it. You already
Yeah.
know that you have an attitude problem. Now fix it. Like
Yeah.
things trigger you. And
Yeah,
that's the buzzword now. Everybody, I'm triggered by this. I'm triggered by. So why are
right,
you triggered? Fix
right.
it. Because now you're married and nobody cares, right? Even when you're single, I personally, like, I don't care that you're triggered if you're nasty. Like, I need you to work on what triggers you so you can stop being offended by everything. Being
Yes.
triggered is not an excuse for bad behavior.
Mm,
Yeah.
no, no. Trigger, if you're triggered, it's just it's a sign that you have brokenness, that there is a soul fracture and you
Hmm.
have not fixed the problem. And it's just going to keep showing up. It doesn't matter who it is. No one person is the trigger, right? It's just going to keep showing up over and over again. That's why when I teach women healing after heartbreak, I don't just touch on the relationship aspect of it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the smallest part of the course. Like, because there's so much trauma before that. I tell people all the time, when you go to therapy, typically therapy will deal with the symptoms of the problem, right? So if you are a woman who deals with anger or trust issues or whatever the things are, maybe you're lustful, right? I struggled heavily with masturbation. That
Hmm.
happened before marriage. I
That's
came
right.
into the marriage the same way. The
Hmm.
marriage didn't stop me from having that problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, my husband, thank God, he's the man he is. He's helped me through that.
Hmm.
He was a support system with me in that season of my life.
Hmm.
I'm saying all that to say, you have to heal the problem, and then the symptoms will go away. Right? We don't just pacify the problem and think that we're not going to have, or we pacify the symptoms and think that we're not going to have the problem anymore. It's
Yeah.
going to show back up.
It will show back up. I want to ask you, because like I told you, I know the kiddos are waiting,
Yeah.
hubby's waiting, and he's not gonna get upset with me because we'll have to bring you back on the show. I don't want him to be like, listen, you can't go back on her show again because she talks to you.
Right.
Um, even though it seemingly appears that you and your husband found each other and got together and got married and all that stuff, it seemingly appears that it was very fast, but you really were in a waiting period and a purging period, because you said that there was this period of about 9 months where you were separated, you were literally by yourself, and you had turned to God and you were healing. I want to ask you, for those that are wondering, was the wait worth it? Now that you're married, was the wait worth it?
Absolutely. I tell
Yeah.
people all the time that when you're in a waiting season, when you look back on when you are out of the waiting season and you do get married, when you look back on the waiting season, you don't typically think about the hard times. You don't think about how long it was. And, oh my God. You really don't. If
Hmm.
anything, your perspective is shifted. It never see when you get the baby that you've been dreaming of, when you get the career that you've been asking for, the man that you've been asking for, you never look back at the time when you didn't have it and gloat and not gloat, but struggle with
Yeah.
how much this season was hard. And you don't, especially when the thing that you finally have is so good. You know what I mean? And so right now, I'm in love. I'm extreme in love, and I'm constantly growing in love with him. We are learning, we are growing together, we are growing spiritually together. It's absolutely amazing.
Did you get the chocolate baby?
I did. That is my Luke. He is just spitting image of him.
I
Spitting
love
image of him. It's literally the baby that I saw in my dream.
that is so amazing that God is just who he is. And now here we are, fast forward to right now where you are mentoring women of all ages. Talk to
Mm.
us about your academy. I really want people to know how they can connect with you.
I love it. It's my baby. It's the first one, first of many. The first course that I said that I wanted to create was a jump start, and it's a jump start to healing. So it is me teaching it live. It won't always be that way just because I have to give my attention to other things. But right now it is being taught live. It is a month of classes, 2 classes a week, and it's just absolutely amazing. We are touching on healing from the inside out. We are deep diving. This is not a course with how to find a man in 2 weeks. This is not how to become a married woman in a month. That's not what this is. It is healing to
Mm.
become the best version of you so that you can be prepared and ready for whatever God has for you, including the spouse. I have women who are divorced in the course. I have women who are currently married but struggling. I have women who are single, never been married, but they just want to learn from the people who made the mistakes so that they don't make the mistakes themselves, which I think is so wise.
That is so cool.
So wise, right? It's so many different kind of women. And then you have other women who are, I have some women who are actually in divorce. So they're in court and they are just struggling. Either they're struggling with not knowing if they're doing the right thing or if they just want to be healed and ready for the next man. So good stuff.
And so you also coach women. So you also offer one-on-one coaching. So talk to us about, like, give us all the things. People are going to
Yeah.
want to work with you. So, like, give us all the things.
So I do offer one-on-one coaching. I really love the aspect of the business because it gives me the opportunity to do what I've been doing for years. I've been coaching and mentoring women through YouTube. That's where my community started. And I would just give them my phone number and we would just be on the phone for hours where God was like, hey, I need you to expand your horizons. I need you to meet more women. I need you to create this calendar for yourself. And so here we are with this coaching business. You get a 1 hour, it's never an hour, it always goes over, but it's a 1 hour coaching session with me where you really just come with the questions. You come with the problem, and the Lord helps me serve you the best way I can. So again, this is not something that is, I call them like get rich quick schemes, like it's not that. We are going to be deep diving into healing. We're going to be deep diving into the problem. And typically, the problem starts with your lack of spiritual guidance, your lack of spiritual growth. And typically, it's a kind of like a problem in your relationship with the Lord. So that's
Mm.
the first thing that we touch on. And I love it because I always have repeat guests. I always have repeat clients. They always come back and then we build rapport. I'm working on some sort of like membership or subscription where we can have multiple coaching sessions and it'll be more of a community. My community is actually coming up in the next 3 days. It will be ready, I think, by Friday. It will be ready. So all of that will be on my Instagram bio.
I love that. And so how can people connect with you for more information? How can they find you on Instagram and all those great things?
So I am Faye Adams. So it's FAEFAY Adams on Instagram. Same thing on TikTok. And if you want to find me on YouTube where the videos are longer and more in depth, you can find me at Journeying to Self. So Journeying to Self, or you can just find me at YouTube /Faegen Adams.
And of course, you guys know we have all the information in the show notes. And it has just been an honor to just have you. I felt like I learned so much from my little big sister. Like, I feel like that's who you are now. And I really pray that those of you that were tuned in and you're watching, that you really picked up some really great tips. Like, I know for me, it's like trash the list. I need to just totally trash the list and just completely surrender everything to God. And for me, like, the main thing I was telling Faegen before we got on here, I was like, I just told God I just want him to be taller than me. Like, but even in that, I'm like, okay, we'll trash that with understanding that God is going to bring the things that not only what I want, but absolutely everything that I need. I want to ask you, is you and hubby, what you have now, is it beyond what you ever imagined, or is it exactly what you thought it would be?
It's beyond.
It's
It's
beyond.
beyond. He's beyond. And I always tell my husband, I don't mean to put you on a pedestal. That's not my goal. Right? It's not my goal. But he is beyond just how he handles me on a daily basis.
Hmm.
I'm constantly being healed. He said one thing to me when we were dating. I was freaking out, telling him I wasn't ready, right? And he said, Faegen, have you ever thought about the fact that the thing that hurt you the most, that broke the most pieces inside of you was a man, right? Right? Your relationship and this marriage was the thing that broke you the most. Have you ever thought that the thing that might heal you is a
Uh-oh.
man?
Listen, him and his words, okay? I
And
love
that's
it.
exactly what's happened. every day, daily basis. And I'm not just saying that. He's not perfect. He's not perfect. I'm helping him heal. I'm helping him do some things. But I'm telling you.
But it's beyond, and he's beyond. And what I love about that, everyone that's tuned in, is that it is worth the wait. It's worth the wait. It's worth the process. It's worth you fasting. It's worth you sacrificing what your flesh wants to just pursue God and wait for him to give you the beyond. So I'm excited about that. Listen, y'all, come back next week, same time, same place. Remember, I love you. You were created to make God famous. He has anointed you to do hard things, and the hard thing might be for you to just wait. So you all have a blessed one. Thank you so much.